Yeah, that's incredible. It's
Yeah.
announced that The Rock will be returning for to the WWE for the first time in 7.5 years to team with John Cena at Survivor Series from Madison Square Garden to take on R-Truth and The Miz. How
Yeah.
big of a deal was it for Rocky to be coming back to the company at this point?
Well, look, it was he was already a huge star, and it's The Rock we're talking about. So always a huge moment, always a cool moment for me because he gets only a certain kind of Fiji water and the Red Line energy drinks, and he has a refrigerator stocked full of them in his locker room. And so when he's out rehearsing, I go and steal all his
drinks.
his Red Lines and his awesome waters.
Oh,
But
tweet
no, it's
that.
look,
Yeah, what do you think about
yeah.
that, Rock? That's
He
where the
he
missing
knows.
drinks went.
I told him, hey, do you mind if I get but he was already a huge deal. And so for him to be coming back was another huge deal. For him to be working and in an advertised match, it was a really huge deal. And so, yeah, I think it was awesome. I think the bigger question is when you hear this a decade later, you go, Miz and R-Truth were teaming against Punk and Rock. But it worked, and it was actually really cool. I thought it was great.
Let's go back to that Rock match coming back for Survivor Series. How amazed were you that Rock was able to get back in the ring and just be the Rock again after all that time?
Yeah, well, look, so here's I'm amazed for one thing that
But
he
he's
can
got
do.
the whole the team.
Here's
He's
the
got
deal.
some resources.
When it comes to him coming back, he's always in great shape.
It's got to be
but
tough for him
what
to
he's
keep
gotta
up his
do-
diet.
Yeah, yeah. Work on the diet for the
You know,
pay-per-view
personal
body.
chef coming through.
But you do make
Still gotta work
amenities
hard.
or whatever for guys like him. He probably had somebody, and I don't know who that somebody is. I know when Brock did it, it was always Curtis Axel would go and they'd have a ring set up somewhere and they'd go work out or whatever. And so I'm sure he was getting back into ring shape before he got in there. And look, that's what every great performer does. Back in the day, you'd see them before it was every month a pay-per-view or every 3 weeks a pay-per-view. You'd see them get pudgy and then diet and get ripped up for the big pay-per-view coming up. You know what I mean? That's how it used to be.
And
Now he just stays in shape all the time because he's in friggin' movies all the time now.
I joke about having the resources to have a chef for your trainers, but you still got to put in the work regardless.
Yeah. That's the truth of it. I mean, he has a guy show up that is his punching bag and work partner. But he's still got to get in there and do it. And he's still got to get back in shape to get in there and do it at that level, main event level of what pay-per-view did you say it was? SummerSlam?
I think it was Survivor Series.
Survivor Series.
I'm probably the idiot in saying it wrong.
That's okay.
No, it was.
It's probably Summer Series. Survivor shots.
Did you know that Rock versus Cena was going to be the money match at this point? No, we're still developing.
No, I did not. I'm trying to think about that time. No, because I thought maybe this was a one-off type deal when he came back in.
Mm-hmm.
As I got into the behind-the-scenes deal a little more, sitting in on meetings and create. Well, maybe I have Brian sit in on this meeting, and so then I started sitting in on creative meetings. I started hearing stuff like that, but it was later,
After Survivor Series, CM Punk went out in the media talking about Rock not shaking hands. Do you think he was working an angle? And what was Rocky like backstage for the show? Do you remember any of this going on?
I do not remember. I wasn't that high up yet. I don't remember what matches were on that show, but I probably had like the Santino Marella or something like that, which I love, by the way. He was my favorite wrestler. He was my favorite wrestler for like a decade.
Mm-hmm. Everything you gave him. Like, you give him the stupidest idea in the world and they make it gold on TV.
And I'll never forget when he... anyway, what were we talking about?
Rock shaking hands or not shaking hands,
I don't know.
CM Punk causing a little stir.
Look, it's so Punk. I believe Punk was two things: going into business for himself in a good way, like starting
Making
conversation, and it was basically starting a conversation with the grassroots wrestling fan of this big Hollywood guy went away, and now he's coming back, and they want me, the workhorse, to wrestle him, and you know what I mean. And so it was the plumber versus the movie star, and so he needed to say like, hey. He wouldn't shake my hand. He needed something. The story needed something. And so whether that was true or not, I liked it. I thought it made something there where there might not have been otherwise. And look, Punk is a guy that will cause trouble. He will say things to wrinkle your feathers, and he's done me that way. And I always say, well, you don't let anybody push your buttons unless you let them, and I agree with that. I let him, but he can do that. So I can understand how Rock being a little standoffish and Punk being a little, I guess standoffish is a nice way to put it too. I can understand there being frustrations putting that stuff together.
Talk about someone else in the Conrad family. Ric Flair is announced as being part of the Hall of Fame class and to be inducted again as a member of the Horsemen, but he's currently at this point under contract to TNA. What did you think of all that?
Whoa, just craziness. You know what? I never knew any of that dealings. Like, I didn't know if they were in cahoots with TNA I didn't know what was going on. I was still kind of just trying to be entertaining and be a good producer at this point,